What is up, Techno fam? Hope you are having a great day. In today's video, I will be showing you how to set up a 13-channel Dolby Atmos system with the Denon AVR-X6700H, and we're going to check it out right after the jump. Today's video is sponsored by Dream Media Home Theater. The Denon AVR-X6700H is back in stock and Dream Media has plenty on hand just for you. In fact, I bought mine from them, so not only am I on the sales team at Dream Media, but I'm also a client. If projectors are more your thing, they have plenty of JVC and Epson projectors in stock right now as well. Now, if you're looking for just one or two items for your next upgrade, or you need a consultation to help plan out your full theater build, Dream Media has got you covered. Click the link in the description and give them a call today to get your upgrade started. And I'm back. Now, first things first, before I begin, I want to give a big shout out and thank you to all my patrons on Patreon. You guys rock. Now, today we're talking about Dolby Atmos, and if you've been looking for the best content to demo your Dolby Atmos system, whether it's Dolby Atmos, DTS:X, IMAX Enhanced, and Auro-3D is coming soon, well, you should check out my Patreon page at the $5 level. All of my patrons have access to those demo files from the demo discs themselves. So make sure you click the link in the description and become a patron today. Okay, so if you saw my video back in 2020 about the announcement that Denon had about the 2020 AV receivers, majority of it was about 8K, and I know the 8K port doesn't work and you have to get this little box and then it'll work, and some people say it still doesn't work. Well, I haven't got my little box yet, so I will be making a video on that when the box arrives. However, the one thing that was very, very special with the Denon AVR-X6700H, which intrigued me a lot, was the fact that it processes 13 channels, powers 11, sure. And this is a big jump from the previous versions. Like, I had the Denon AVR-X6300H and the 6500H, and those would all power and process 11 channels. This time we have one that processes 13 channels and powers 11. So with a, power amplifier, I can have a 13-channel Dolby Atmos setup, and I'm pretty sure nobody's ever walked through how to do that, so I'm going to do that today. We're not going to do the normal unboxing part because I know Chris from Dream Media did an unboxing video a long time ago with the AVR-X6700H, which I'll link down in the description and with the card up top. So without any further ado, let's jump into the Denon menu and get into it. All right, everybody, here we are at the Denon setup menu. Just press setup on the Denon remote and we're good to go. So before we begin, I want to make sure you guys kind of have a little bit better handle on what's in the menu. So if we jump into audio, this is where, you can get a graphic equalizer, mess around with that if you like to. I didn't run Odyssey on this yet, but if you had, this is where you can go and turn Odyssey off, set it to reference, set it to Odyssey on but flat. All that kind of stuff is done there. If we go down to video, Hdmi Setup, this is where you turn on and off ARC, that's audio return channel. So if you have a Denon or Marantz AV receiver of the same year, this is all going to look the same. HDMI control, you can turn that on or off, or ARC, just turn that on and you've got audio return channel active. Let's back out of there. And another thing you want to check is 4K, 8K signal format. If it's set to enhanced, then you've got 4K HDR set up for the entire AV receiver. Now, if you have a 4K 120 device like a PlayStation 5, you want to make sure 8K enhanced is the setting. Since I don't have that connected up just yet, I'm going to keep it at enhanced, so I have at least 4K HDR running. Back out of here, and speakers is what we want to go to, and manual setup as well. Now in this menu, I've gone through everything: ampersand, speaker config, distances, crossovers, bass, 2-channel playback, and speaker preset. Right now we're on speaker preset 1. You can have 2 speaker presets, so that's where you would change all of that. After, let's say you ran Odyssey, now you want to do a 2-channel setup with a bunch of different settings, then I'm going to switch to preset 2, then set all my settings for 2-channel playback, and then I can just go from preset 1 to preset 2 and we're good to go. Okay, so right now what we want to do is go into ampersand. Now familiarize with this screen and some of the features here. You can change your layouts. Here we can see what speakers are active and which ones aren't active, and you'll notice that when we walk through my little demonstration here. Now first and foremost, this assign mode will tell the AVR how many channels to process. So right now, it's processing 11 channels, which is what the previous versions of this model Denon would do. Like I had the X6300H and the X6500H, so everything on this level at the max was 11 channels until now. The Denon X6700H does process 13 channels and it powers 11. So what we need to do here is we need to change this to 13. So if we go left once, we get into preamplifier mode, which is a cool mode that I use down here in the studio, which I'll probably use later. But for our purposes, we want to make sure we are on 13.1 channels. So now let's start from scratch. This is a 5.1 setup, and the assign mode is set to 13.1 channels because we are going to process for 13 channels. Now, I did mention that the view terminal config will tell you which speakers are active on the back. So here's what that looks like. So these are the 5 speakers for your 5.1. It's got subwoofer 1 and 2 still highlighted, and everything is kind of grayed out because you're not using any of those at all. Okay, so now what we want to do is we want to add 2 height channels. So 5.1.2 is what we're doing right now. And what we're going to do is go into height speaker, press left, and now we've got 2 front heights, and we can, change this configuration a few times. Right? We've got front height, top rear, top middle, top front, whichever way you like. Now, let's go back to top middle. I think if you have in ceilings, you're probably doing top middle if you have a 5.1.2. Now, if you have a Dolby bouncy speaker, you're going to go down to Dolby speaker and do either front Dolby or surround Dolby. And you can see on the diagram, you've got the Atmos toppers on the front speakers, and now the Atmos speakers on your surround speakers. Now you can mix and match. Let's say you do some Atmos toppers for the rear and you got 2 height channels. Boom, in the front, we can do that. Or maybe, some in ceilings for the front and Dolby Atmos toppers on the back. I'm not a huge fan of Dolby Atmos toppers. They do work in the right room. So you can even go 4 channels for the Dolby height bounce thingamajig, but you cannot go 6 until you add the surround backs. Just think of having 6 height channels as, equivalent to how many speakers you have that actually can sit on top of, right? So I'm gonna change this back to none and go with my 2 front heights, okay? That's how I have it in this room, so that's what I'll go with for 5.1.2. Moving on to 5.1.4, it's pretty easy. Just change that to 4. And now we can change a few settings here. Again, top front, top middle, front height for the front. And for the rear layout, we have rear height, surround height, and top middle, top rear. So you can do a top rear and a top front like this. A lot of people have this kind of a setup in their theater. So yeah, that's pretty cool. We can do it that way. I have rear height and front height, so I'm gonna keep it like so. If we go down to view terminal configuration, you can see that the surround backs are inactive and the height 3 are inactive, of course, because we are still only on 5.1.4. All right, now let's take it up another notch. Boom, 5 channel. This is actually what I have upstairs. I have a 10.1 Auro-3D setup. Now, if you notice, there is the Voice of God channel in the middle of the ceiling. Now, interestingly enough, we can also change that to front height and center height. So now we can go back and forth between the Voice of God channel and the center height channel. And you can move these around to surround height and rear height for the backs. But for the most part, this is really cool. So you can do all this powered internally from the 6700H. If we go down to view terminal config, as you can see here, height 3 is going to be the top surround. Now, if we go back and change that to center height, go back to view terminal config to see which is going to output the center height information, that's going to be height 3 right for the center height. The Voice of God channel was height 3 left, if you recall. Let's just jump back there real quick to show you. Yes, height 3 left is going to be the top surround or Voice of God channel. Again, this is what I have set up upstairs. However, with the X6700H, it will power that top surround or voice of God channel or the front height channel. I have to pre-out my voice of God channel, so it's a little bit different from the Marantz SR7015 I have upstairs. All right, but moving on, let's go from 5.1.5 or 10.1 Auro to 5.1.6. Oh yeah. Okay, so right now it's in a weird kind of a configuration because the front height is a front height. Whoa, look at that. We change it to top front. We've got 3 sets of in-ceiling speakers. All right, moving on, we've got front height and center height and top surround. So this is that. Ooh, this is actually cool. I wish I can do this upstairs. I might have to try this. So this is going to be an 11.1 Auro-3D setup right here. This is what you're going to do for Auro-3D setup. This is more in line with what I have upstairs with the surround height. So this would be cool. I got to try that out. That would be cool. I wonder what it's going to look like as far as the terminal is considered. Oh, pretty basic. Okay, height 3 right is going to be the center height, and height 3 left is going to be the top surround. So very cool. I didn't know you can run 11.1 Auro-3D with this setup. So that's pretty awesome. I'm excited about that. I'm excited to try that out. And if you don't know what Auro-3D is, it's another immersive format, and I'll put links in the description and a card up top to go over Auro-3D and some of the other videos I've previously made. Okay, so let's move on and see what other configurations we can do. So now we've got 6 height channels, which are 2 height channels, 2 in ceilings in the middle position, and then 2 height channels in the rear. So now if we go over again, we've now got surround height. So this is more like what's going to happen in this room here in the studio, where the middle heights are above the surround speakers. Checking the terminal config, we've got front height out of height 1, we've got rear height out of height 2, and we've got the center height or the surround height, that's the middle height channels, out of height 3. So make sure you remember which one is which in the diagrams, because this is going to be important when you're actually connecting everything up. So in this diagram, the middle height channels are the height channels coming out of the receiver in height 3 left and right, okay? Now if we're going this way with the all 6 in ceilings, if we go to view terminal config, it acts in the same way. Do you see that? Height 1 is the top front, height 2 is the top rear, and height 3 is the top middle. It's pretty crazy. Height 3 is going to be the middle speakers out of the 6 up in your ceiling or up attached up high, however you want to do it. All right, so now let's go into 7.1. Whoa, what is that? Oh, this is very interesting. So check this out. You can actually run front wides instead of surround backs. If you don't have the room for surround backs, you can run front wide and have 7 speakers that way. That's really cool. Didn't know that. As far as height channels though, we are maxed out at 4. So if you don't have surround back, but you have room for front wides and you have this receiver, you can go max 11 channels, 7 ear level speakers, 1 subwoofer or 2, whatever, and 4 height channels. You'll be processing the front wides though. So what does that look like from the terminal standpoint? It looks like you're using output for height 3 left and right as the front wide output. Interesting. Very interesting. That's cool. Look at that. Didn't know that. Just found that out right now poking around. So again, if you're running front wides, the max you can do is 7.1.4 front wide. All right, so let's add the surround back. Okay, so here we have standard 7.1 with surround back. Now let's go into the height speaker and move that over to 2 channels. Now we've got 7.1.2. Now for 7.1.4, we just keep going. Now for those of you that have the Voice of God channel, here you go. The Voice of God channel has to be powered externally. That's why it says PRE. That means pre-out. And going into terminal config, you can see that the height 3 pre-out is going to be for the top surround. All right, let's move this over to 6. Now we've got 7 ear level speakers and 6 height channel speakers. So we've got 13 channels running. Now again, the AVR can only power 11 channels, so you have to choose which speakers you're going to power externally. If we go to View Terminal Config, we can see that the pre-outs for height 3 are going to be your top middle. Now you do have a choice on which speakers to pre-out, either the top middle or the front left and right. What that looks like on Terminal Config, you can see the front left and right speakers are now grayed out and the front left and right pre-outs are active. Now, common misconception, everybody thinks you need to assign all the pre-outs, and that's not the case. All the pre-outs are always on except for the front left and right and the height 3 pre-outs. Those have to be designated. All the other ones are just always on, so don't worry about if you wanted to power your front stage externally. All you'd have to do is change the pre-out to the front and then connect up your center channel like normal, because they are always on. The only speakers you have to designate in the amp assign screen are either the front left and right or the height 3 left and right. So just keep that in mind. All right, so with this configuration, we can again change what's happening up top. You know, we are externally powering the front too. So if we go to View Terminal Config, you can see on the right-hand side, top front is height 1, top rear is height 2, and top middle is height 3. Remember, it's a little wacky. It's a little wacky, so just remember all that. So here's an example of a 13-channel setup. Very cool. All right, now let's go with a 9.1. Boom, here we go. Here's a 9.1. We've got your 5 main speakers, front left, center, front right, surround left, surround right, but we've added surround back and front wides. Crazy. That's a lot of speakers. And that's what I will be running in this room right here. Now, since we're going 9 channels at ear level, that only leaves 4 channels for height channels, right? So we can do 2 or 4, and that's it. 2 or 4. And once we get to 4, then we have to figure out which speakers we are going to pre. So in this situation with front wides, we can either pre the front left and right or the front wide left and right. So that is totally up to you. And again, when we go to Terminal Config, height 3 pre-out is where the front wide signal is going to be coming out of the AV receiver. So I will be running this kind of configuration here in this room until I find a solution for the third set of height channels, which I'm still looking around Amazon for the right parts. Now, if I go to the assign mode and change that to preamplifier, this is actually the setup I'm going to have in here because I have a 16-channel power amplifier that I'm going to use in conjunction with this receiver, thus making the Denon AVR-X6700H pretty much a preamp processor. Now, if we go down to View Terminal Config, you can see that all the pre-outs are highlighted and all the speakers are turned off. So if you wanted to run preamplifier mode, you need to have enough amplifiers to externally power your entire setup. Now, before we get out of here, I do want to go back out of this and I want to show you speaker config. Whenever you make changes in amp assign, you need to come into speaker config and make sure that the speakers are turned on. Now, this is also where you select whether the speakers are large or small, how many subwoofers you have, like it can be 1 or 2 or none. One of the things that happens is sometimes when you add a speaker, instead of it saying small or large, it'll say none. And you'll be like, hey, how come I'm not getting any sound out of that speaker? You need to come into speaker config and make sure these are set to either small or large, not none. Cannot be set to none. If it's set to none, then you're not going to get any sound out of your speakers. So yeah, another quick tip for you guys there, just to help you figure things out. All right, everyone. Well, there you go. Look at that. Just poking around in the menu, and I found out some things about the AV receiver that I didn't know before myself. So I'm excited to try out all these different things like the Auro-3D. Ooh, can't wait to see, well, I'll have to figure some things out upstairs to run the top surround or voice of God channel and the front height at the same time. So that's going to be interesting. I wonder how that's going to go. I know I could try front height here, but I won't have voice of God. Oh, I do have another speaker. Now I got to get my contractor friend up here to install a speaker right in the center of the ceiling here. That's it's It's going to be fun. Now, if you guys have any questions about this or anything else, let me know down in the comments. And as I stated before in the video, Dream Media Home Theater has a bunch of these X6700Hs in stock. So make sure you click the link in the description, tell them that you want one, and tell them TechnoDad sent you. Anyway, have a great one, and we'll see you next time. Peace.
Me.